So this is the equipment that we're going to be using this morning. What we have here is titanium white, cadmium yellow pale hue, permanent rose, cobalt blue, burnt umber, and ivory black. All of this is in the Winsor & Newton Winton range. What we have in here is linseed oil, refined artist's linseed oil, not the yellow stuff that you buy in hardware shops that use in varnish and things like that, and French polishing. This is an artist grade. It's clear, much clearer. And turpentine. You can either use turpentine, you can use Sansador, or something like Zested, which is citrus oil. The brushes we're going to use, this one's about 1 inch. We're going to just use that for the wash. We've got a couple of filberts here, so they're not like the chisel bright brushes. You know, they're called bright, the ones that are very flat across the top. But I've kind of I've been favouring these lately. And because it's such a small painting, I've just got this number 1, just to put in some details, maybe highlights and things like that. So what I've done is I've put in a centre line along here, because that's kind of roughly sort of working along the centre there. Above it, sky. Above it, rising the chapel. Kind of tree shapes there. Tree shapes there. A dark there. Darks running along here. Reeds. Okay, and a dark here, which is more or less a kind of a reflection of this tree here. Okay, so now I'm going to turn this into a bit of a no-tan, which is kind of almost like in between a drawing and an underpainting. It's not complete like an underpainting, but it'll give you a kind of an idea of where things lie and how the general design of the painting is going to be. I find this especially useful in landscapes. It's not so useful with still lifes. Could be useful in portraits because they're so much more complicated. But so let's turn this into a kind of a no-tan. That's a Japanese word, N-O-T-A-N. You should look it up. It's a useful sort of technique and tool in your sort of box of tricks for painting. Okay, so for example, I can sort of paint that area there. The overhanging tree, frame the painting. This one here is pretty nice dark, and the chapel. So you now, because we've done this, we can start to sort of see the relationship between this dark up here and what's going on beneath it. So that's definitely dark here. I'm putting that in there, and it's kind of dark along there. This is a very simple schematic, really, of the painting that we're going to paint. That's dark along there. It's dark above the bridge. Dark there as it comes along, and dark along here. And that kind of schematic gives you sort of an opportunity of just working out where things are in the painting. There's a tree going up there, like that. Don't forget that, like you're standing out here in this park at 7 o'clock. You're being sort of swarmed at by gnats. I was walking with Kathy, and she got one flew into her eye. You know, and that'd be just the thing that would happen when you're out painting. It's such a joyous experience. But these are the things that happen. Dark along there. Just, we have to remember that that's the chapel. That's a bit fat, that thing, but it's only a schematic. Okay. That could come up a little higher, I think. It's very useful when you're out and about, this technique. Yes, beyond the drawing, but not quite an underpainting. So sky comes up around here, goes back over that, and even come down further. And this is a kind of a, what I'm using in this burnt umber is a kind of a dilute version of burnt umber, a dilute mix of burnt umber. Since I can't sort of think of the words when I'm painting. There. Okay, so that frames the painting around there. Okay. Oh yeah, and there's a dark down there that's useful to put in. That's the reflection. And there's water there. So yeah, so now we've got all this business here. I'm going to sort of start putting in some of the features of this this composition. So I think I'm going to start out with that that bridge. So I'm going to make a mix for that sort of turquoise. And if I just change my camera, I can just show you the mix that I make. Right, so I'm going to take some white, some blue, and some yellow. So blue and yellow makes a kind of a green, but there's not much yellow in this. And it's quite bright, that bridge. The sun was on it. A bit more. Oh, I've got some white there. So I'm not going to do it too bright yet because I'm just wondering whether the brightest bright in this painting, in fact, I think is these birch trees here. I can't see anything brighter. Yeah, that's definitely the brightest point. So everything's got to be between that and the really dark darks. So the usual things, the same as still life. The still lifes teach you to sort of look for these kind of things. It's always the same thing. Same with the portrait. Yeah, okay. All right, so there's our sort of cursory bridge. I'm going to do a kind of, I'm going to do those buildings, which are going to be obscure. I've decided they're far away, they can be very obscure. And I'm going to make a mix for those. And it will be white, red, it'll be everything sort of practically. White, red, and yellow. But predominantly red and yellow, I think. White. Anything else is just there to make it sort of grayer. I think I might even put a bit of burnt umber in there. Put a bit of oil in. Put those in there. They're far away. They don't need much description. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to that. I'm not going to change cameras this time. A little bit of yellow to that. And put in that building there. Yeah, okay. I'm going to put in the darks of that, no, the trees, no, the very dark foliage, where I can see that it's dark. Here, here, okay. And I'm going to make up a very dark green for that. Okay, so I'm going to make blue and red and yellow. And a bit of burnt umber put in, just to give it a bit of punch. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to put in these darks where I see them. At this stage, you know, sort of, it's all sort of very blocky, large strokes. Just covering area. Comes down there, and the reflection in that water. Water goes across there, and then down here. The turn of that bridge, the step, I should say, up to the bridge, up there. Swatting away gnats as we paint. Okay. That can all go in there later, post everything else. Where are we now? I'm going to block in some of this area of grass here. And to do that, I'm going to make up a grass color. And it will be yellow and blue to make a green. But it's slightly sort of acidic. I'm going to add in a little bit of red to it. I'm going to add in a little bit of oil as well to help it sort of spread around a bit, okay? There. We're putting down dabs, aren't we? The usual thing. I'm going to paint that there. I'm going to put in some green there. And that sort of green area there, just underneath the reeds, across the water. There. Where else do I see a nice green there like that? That's a nice green up there. It's not too strong. That's kind of roughly similar there. And there. And there. And that comes down beyond the post of the bridge. Bridge there. Bridge there. Let's paint the floor of that bridge. I'm not going to paint it the dull grey that it is. I think I'm going to paint it into a kind of a, like the buildings beyond. Okay, and then there's a pathway there, just across, an area of light there. A bit more green beyond. And it's further away. I'm going to add in a little bit of white. There's this concept of aerial perspective, and that just means the further away things get, the paler they get. Still need a bit of red in that there. Paint a little bit. That can be true there. And that's kind of there. Okay, I missed a dark. I missed a dark down here. I'm just going to put that in with just a dash of burnt umber here. Put it on there. Okay, sky. I'm going to do the sky. And the sky was a gorgeous summer sky, really. And I'm just going to mix white. You don't need to see this because it's just going to be white and a little bit of blue. And I'm going to put a little bit of oil into it just to help it sort of flow a little bit more, okay? We're just blocking in. Just like we would do the still life. Just still only blocking in. Okay. Oh yes, and also we've got an exact, almost an exact sort of reflection of that blue here. Just going to fill that in a little bit more. Now, I'm just going to lighten that. Oh God, I've got a bee in here with me. Just going to lighten that sky as it comes down towards the horizon. Okay, so now we can start sort of putting in a few more details, I think. That goes. Just make sure I don't sort of lose that shape of that building there. I'm going to just restate these buildings here. Just make sure I know where they are. That one there, and that's up there. Yeah. So make sure I remember where it is. Now there are some sort of darkish sort of trees up in front of the chapel. And now kind of a tree. We're going to sort of push that into the background. Because it's far away here, a bit of a grey, sort of greeny grey, to push that sort of tree out into the background. There's a kind of a russet colour coming up. I think it's the foliage of the birch trees. Coming up here, I think. Up there. Coming up there as well. Okay, there's some trees in light over onto the left-hand side, around here. I'm going to lighten those up. I'm going to restate that dark that's above here. Okay. There's a grey-green up here. Continues that thing there. Grey-green there. I'm going to do something with the grass coming down here that's in light. I won't do too much with that. I'm going to try and keep this sort of, what do you call it, cursory and brushy. And then everything goes a bit sort of red. Well, not red, but it's kind of lighter and more sort of slightly sort of patchy. Yeah, you can express that by putting in some variations in the green. Okay. We'll do some more with the foliage around here. So we're not doing tree trunks yet. That's a very important sort of thing to consider. That can all be sort of done at the end in oils. All we're trying to do is sort of make a kind of, I don't know, it's like looking through a bathroom window, I always say, sort of everything is sort of simplified. There's a dark, lovely dark, coming down to the side of the bridge there and down to the water. Yeah. Okay, and then right there. Okay. I'm going to put in some of the greens in the tree above that's framing the painting. Just like a still life, we're bouncing around from one thing to another now, putting in stuff, because it's an alla prima painting and everything's got to be done together. So you don't just choose an area and just start working on it. It's all got to be done the one go, okay? now. All right, so I've got a bit of variation in there. We need some really quite bright greens as well. Maybe just down here a little bit. The light really is on those parts there. That goes large as it goes to the top. I'm going to do this patch here, which is like dried reeds. To be honest, I'm not sure what they are. They've got to be reeds. Look at them. Come on. Now, that will just go there like that. Okay. And then off to the side there like that. And then there's darker, but still light, grayer type reeds here. Okay, so generally speaking, it's kind of like that. Still only dabs. There's another one there. That kind of tone continues over here a little bit. That tree. Okay, it's up into there, up into there. Some darks in here. So I'm breaking that up now again. I had a big stroke going across and I'm just using the dark to break that up. Okay. Make sure that that comes across there like that and defines the bridge a little bit more. Don't want the chapel to be defined at all, really. I'm just going to put that up there a little bit there, down there. It actually goes dark as it gets down there, but we don't want to sort of be descriptive about it. Okay, I'm going to reiterate some of the dark parts of the tree now, because I've got something to work against now. You know, the sky. There's some nice darks in there. Okay. I don't want to be too descriptive about that, really. So that's... And that really nice dark of that, whatever it is, cypress tree, I think. So you just don't get specific about the shape of it. You don't need to, and you don't really want to either. Now, I'm going to restate that bridge a bit more now. And now the gnats are going crazy on you. local yahoos have arrived. What are you doing, mister? Are you painting? Which I've had. Okay. Yes, to restate that bridge. I'll go back to my turquoise. Here's one I prepared earlier. Turquoise. Brighten it a little bit. It's actually a colour that's very difficult to get with this palette. I think you probably need a different kind of blue. I tell you, a phthalo blue would be really nice in this situation, but we came to this part without phthalo blue, so we've got to work with what we have. That's the painter's thing. You work with what you have and you accept the results. You just try and sort of work with tone rather than getting everything absolutely pristine and accurate. And I'm putting in these little posts, right? But I have to accept that they're going to be wonky and sort of a little bit muddy, you know, just because that's painting for you. I'll make that one up slightly because put more oil into that paint just to help it sort of glide a little bit more. And that falls down there a little bit. We just have to sort of it's an impression, said he. Okay. Now there are some sort of brights around the painting that I'm just going to sort of have a go at. One in there. There's a blue. That must be a glass sort of like semi-dome there. There's one here. There's a kind of a pathway here. There's one behind the trees there. They're a bit bright. They're not that bright, but okay. I'm going to put in that a stroke for that reflective dome up here. I'm going to slightly darken the that sort of chapel a little bit. It's not that dark, is it? So. It's quite dark, in fact. Down there. into there. And that's, we can cut that back in a minute. Okay. I'm going to put in sort of some reflective windows, reflected light from windows in those buildings. They're reflecting the sky, they're blue. Up here. Okay, I'm going to do some pushing out of all this foliage here. Moving it in and out of the sky. I need more sky. Mix myself up some sky. I'm just shaping some of these leaves with the with this blue sky color. Putting it behind. I'm loading the brush, by the way. There's plenty of paint on the brush. That helps it sort of get off the brush without sort of without disturbing too much of the paint underneath. I'm not going to do too much of this, but it's just an impression of the way the leaves fall, using the sky color to cut it back into shape. Okay, and I notice it goes lighter again as it gets down to the horizon. Okay, so we can sort of make that more into a tree sort of shape there. Okay. Come in there like that. Now, a bit more work on this stuff down here to make it a bit more natural, like growth. I'm flicking this now with the brush. Just really, it's an unloaded brush. It's more. It's got some paint on it, but very, very little. And I'm just flicking it really lightly, really light to bring sort of some of the paint into the background, and some of the background into the reeds, just to give it a kind of a reedy sort of appearance. It's dragging the paint around, actually. Okay. impressions. See if graffito works as well. Using the actual end of the brush to make little marks. It has a name in Italian. It's called graffito. So it's a kind of a time-honored technique. You can hear it scratching away there. And all I'm doing is removing paint from the. Okay. Let's look. You can get in some. I like putting some kind of reddish sort of tones into grass. It makes it make the thing look a bit more sort of natural. Let's move that around a little bit. Yeah, we have grass, and I think, you know, every sort of medium has its beauty, and oils is the fact that you can do this stuff so far into a painting. Very difficult to do that with, for example, watercolors and even acrylics. Acrylics is the closest thing to oils that you can get, but it's not quite the same. It's its own thing. Okay. Now, we've got the birch trees, didn't we? Silly me. The birch trees were the brightest thing. They're practically reflecting blue in that, so it can't be. And let's have a go at putting those in, okay? So using a very small brush, and it's still sort of quite sort of wider than I wanted it to be, but we are out in the field. We do not have the opportunity to go home and fetch the number 0 brush that we thought would be useful in this circumstance. So I'm just going to drag that stuff out into the background. Impressions of birch trees. And I might even do a little bit of graffito there as well. Don't want to go too far with that because I don't think it's necessary, but there are some other tree trunks sort of behind, but we're not going to be overly descriptive of them. No need. Some nice sort of dark tree trunky activity going on from this side. You just sort of put in little sort of things that suggest that there's stuff going on, sort of activity there. And darken that thing again, it's a pain in the neck there. Building. Okay, and a few more sort of greens around there, just sort of little dabs around. I feel like sort of just pushing that in a wee bit more. So pushing it in so it's not so sort of massive. There's a tall tree trunk I completely missed over here. there's some light on it. Some warm light on it here as it comes down to the ground. That'll do. That'll do there. I'm going to put some sort of little sort of highlights on a few of the points in that bridge. Maybe I could do a little graffito there as well. That might help. Yeah, that kind of helps the thing give it a little bit more sort of. And I'm just going to the last thing. I'm just going to brighten up that sky. Okay. And I'm going to brighten up a few things. From here on, it's details and putting in stuff that you think could be useful in your painting. Some strokes in there just to. Okay, maybe just darken up that area in there. That will help sort of show the bridge off a little bit more. Push that up. Little sort of flicks of paint around here just to suggest these very sort of light birch sort of branches and trees and up here as well. Some little spots around there that could be made brighter. See, there. We've been at this, what, it's an hour and a quarter, probably about an hour really, and we've managed to, well, yeah, there's a very bright light behind me, or behind the computer. I don't want to catch the light. So it's the same as still life, isn't it? Only probably it's more complicated, and it's more complicated again when you actually go out in the field and try to do this. It's really, really well worth doing to actually stand there in front of something. And first of all, you have to choose what you're going to paint, and your vision goes way wider than a webcam, and so you can see everything. You have to say, well, what am I going to paint? And I always say, well, paint the nicest thing first. You know, the whole scene is beautiful, but you paint the thing that drew your attention first, which in my case was the bridge. And I looked back on this walk and I saw the bridge. I thought, oh God, yeah, that'd be a really nice place to take my class sometime. And you know, so I painted that. And so, well, it's got the chapel behind it, so I can get the chapel in easily because it's directly above. And then there are buildings off to the right. They kind of look as if they might support a painting quite well. So you paint the thing that you want to paint, and you sort of position that how you want to paint in your composition first, and then you let everything fall. I think what happens is people get daunted, and I get daunted by looking at something and saying, "Oh, you know, God, it's huge. This whole scene is huge. And what do I pick out to paint?" But you just pick out one thing, you concentrate on it, and let everything fall where it falls. And you might have the beautiful church here and the bridge over here. And you've got to sort of decide whether to actually to focus out and get them both in, or lose one of them. And it kind of, in a way, doesn't matter as long as you get the painting done. That's more important than getting a perfectly positioned and composed painting. I think, you know, because at least you'll have done something and not sort of been defeated by, you know, by this daunting prospect. So when we all get back to living our proper lives again, we'll do a session out there. I think it'd be really nice, and it will have changed. It won't be exactly the same. There might even be more colour in it, flowers. Listen, have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kevin. Thank you.
Thanks. Cheers. Bye. Bye all.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.